My child was fighting for life in that hospital. I had not slept in 3 days. And my entire family was posting vacation photos like nothing was wrong. I saw every single picture. I said nothing. But I forgot nothing either. My son stopped breathing on a Tuesday. Not slowly. Not with warning. One moment he was in his crib making the specific small sounds of a 7-month-old moving between sleep and waking, and the next moment he was not making any sounds at all, and I was across the room before I understood I was moving and my hands were on him before I understood what my hands were doing. The ambulance came in 4 minutes. 4 minutes is a very long time. His name is Felix. 7 months old. He had been born with a heart condition that had been detected at his 20-week scan and that had been monitored across the pregnancy, and that his cardiologist, a woman named Dr. Elaine, had been managing since his birth with the specific focused attention of someone who understood that managing it correctly was the difference between a child who grew up and a child who did not. We had known this was a possibility. Knowing it is a possibility does not prepare you for the 4 minutes. My name is Clara. 31 years old. My husband Marcus had been called at the same moment I called the ambulance, and he had been at the hospital 20 minutes after the ambulance, still in his work clothes, his tie pulled loose, his face doing something I had never seen it do before. Felix was in the pediatric cardiac ICU by 11 that morning. By noon he was stable. Stable was a word Dr. Elaine used carefully. She used it to mean he was not declining and that the interventions were working and that the next 48 hours would tell them more. She did not use it to mean he was fine. She was precise about the difference. I understood the difference. I called my mother from a family waiting room chair at 12:30. She answered on the third ring. I told her about the ambulance and the PICU in the stable and the 48 hours. She said she was so sorry and that she was thinking of us and that she would tell the family. She would tell the family. I was in a waiting room chair with no sleep and a child in a cardiac ICU, and she was going to tell the family. Can you come? A pause. Clara. Her voice had the specific quality it developed when she was about to explain why something was not possible. We are actually in the middle of something this week. Dad and I had planned this trip for months, and we are already here, and it is complicated to just leave. Where are you? The coast. We came down Sunday, she said. We will be back Thursday. The moment we are back, we will come straight to the hospital. Thursday. Felix had stopped breathing on a Tuesday. Thursday was 2 days away. Okay. I ended the call. I went back to the PICU waiting room. I sat beside Marcus. He had his coffee from the machine down the hall, and he handed me one without looking at me, and I took it, and we sat in the specific parallel silence of two people who are afraid together and who understand that the afraid together is the only available form of comfort in a room like this one. My phone was in my hand. I opened the family group chat to read my mother's message to the family. She had sent it at 12:42. It said, Clara's baby is in the hospital. She is asking for prayers. Felix is stable for now. Keeping them in our thoughts. Keeping them in our thoughts. My phone produced the responses. 11 of them across the next 20 minutes. Heart emojis. Prayer hands. Thinking of you. So scary, hope he recovers quickly. Let us know if you need anything. Let us know if you need anything. I put my phone in my pocket. I did not look at it again for 3 hours. At 4 in the afternoon, Dr. Elaine came to the waiting room. She sat across from us and she said the next thing with the precision she always used, and the thing she said was that Felix was stable but that the episode had indicated a progression in his condition that they had been monitoring, and that she wanted to discuss a procedure. The procedure was not small. The procedure was the kind of thing that existed on the list of possibilities that Dr. Elaine had given us at 3 months, and that we had put in the back of a mental drawer because putting it there was the only way to function across the daily reality of caring for a child who was also a child with a heart condition. The drawer was open now. Marcus held my hand. We listened to everything Dr. Elaine said. We asked every question we had. She answered every question with precision. She left. Marcus and I sat in the waiting room with the contents of the drawer between us, and we did not speak for a long time. My phone was in my pocket. At 7 in the evening, Marcus went to get us food from the hospital cafeteria. I took my phone out. I opened the family group chat. The chat had moved past my mother's message about Felix. The thread had continued. Not about Felix. About the trip. My mother had posted a photograph of the coast at sunset. My Aunt Rosalind had replied with 3 fire emojis. My cousin Bet had posted her own photograph from what appeared to be a restaurant. My Uncle Gerald had posted a photograph of a fish he had caught that afternoon. My grandmother, who was 81 and who had a phone she had learned to use 3 years ago specifically so she could be in the family group chat, had sent a gif of a dancing cat that was not connected to anything else in the thread. 7 photographs. 11 comments about the photographs. My son was in a cardiac ICU. I read every message. I looked at every photograph. I put my phone back in my pocket. Marcus came back with food. I ate half of it. I did not mention the chat. The next 48 hours were the specific texture of something I do not have adequate language for. The PICU has a quality that is its own specific reality. The sounds. The light that does not change with time of day. The nurses who move through it with the specific efficiency of people who have chosen to work in the place where the smallest people are most fragile. Dr. Elaine coming and going. Numbers on monitors that I had learned to read the way you learn to read a language when it is the only language available for the information you need. Felix had the focused attention of someone who did not yet know what was happening and who had decided, in the way of 7-month-olds, that the world in front of him was worth looking at regardless of the circumstances of the looking. I watched him look at things. I did not sleep. 41 hours into the PICU stay, I opened the family chat again. My mother had posted 4 more photographs. A meal at a restaurant. A view from what appeared to be a hotel room balcony. A group photograph of everyone on the trip, 11 family members on a beach at what appeared to be golden hour. Everyone on the trip. 11 people. All of them in the group chat. All of them with access to the message my mother had sent at 12:42 on Tuesday. 11 people at golden hour on a beach. My son had been in the cardiac ICU for 41 hours. I looked at every face in the photograph. I put my phone away. I said nothing. I forgot nothing. Marcus came in at 7 on Thursday morning with coffee and the specific exhaustion of someone who had been doing the specific thing I had been doing and who was doing it beside me rather than instead of me, and whose beside me-ness was the thing that had made the 41 hours survivable. He looked at my face. How long since you slept? Tuesday morning. He sat beside me. He put his coffee down. He took my hand. We sat. Dr. Elaine came at 9. She sat across from us again. The procedure, she said, was recommended. The timing was recommended to be within the next week. The risks were real and she named them precisely. The risks of not doing it were also real and she named those precisely. She gave us her recommendation. She answered our questions again, the new ones, the ones we had developed across 41 hours of sitting with the first set of answers. We agreed to the procedure. She left. Marcus put his head in his hands. I put my hand on his back. My phone buzzed in my pocket. My mother. She was back from the coast. She was at the hospital entrance. She wanted to know which floor. I texted her the floor. She arrived 12 minutes later. She came through the waiting room door and she looked at me and her face did the thing that faces do when they encounter something they have been managing from a distance and are now encountering directly and the distance has not adequately prepared them for the direct. She put her arms around me. I stood in her embrace. I did not cry. I had been crying for 43 hours and I had stopped somewhere around hour 38 and what was on the other side of the stopping was something that was not the absence of feeling but the specific presence of a different kind of feeling that I did not yet have a name for. She held on. I let her hold on. Over her shoulder my phone was in my hand and on the screen was the group photograph from the beach and the 11 faces including hers at golden hour on Thursday evening. My son's procedure was scheduled for Tuesday. 1 week from the Tuesday he had stopped breathing. I looked at the photograph. I put the phone away. I pulled back from the embrace. I said, "Let me show you where he is." I showed her. The procedure happened on Tuesday. 4 hours and 17 minutes. Marcus and I sat in the surgical waiting room and we did not speak much and we did not eat and we watched the clock do the specific thing clocks do in surgical waiting rooms, which is move both too slowly and too quickly depending on which feeling you are inside at any given moment. Dr. Elaine came out at 2:19. She sat across from us. She said the procedure had gone as well as it could have gone. She said Felix was in recovery. She said there would be more to watch and more to monitor and that the road ahead was still a road with things on it. She said he was going to be okay. Marcus put his face in his hands. I looked at the ceiling. The ceiling of a surgical waiting room is specific in the way of all things that only people in very particular circumstances look at. I looked at it for a long time. My mother was in the family waiting room with my father and my Aunt Rosalind who had driven 2 hours. They had come that morning. They had brought food and coffee and the specific offering of presents that arrived 9 days after the Tuesday my son had stopped breathing. I walked to the family waiting room. I stood in the doorway. My mother looked up. I said, "He is okay." She stood up. My father stood up. Rosalind put her hand over her mouth. My mother crossed the room and held me again, and this time I let myself be held in a different way, in the specific way of someone who has been holding everything alone for 9 days and who can feel, in the being held, the specific weight of what the holding alone has cost. Felix came home 17 days after the ambulance. 17 days. He came through our front door in Marcus's arms, and he looked at everything in the apartment with the focused attention he had always brought to the world, and I stood in the hallway, and I watched him look at things, and I understood something that I had been sitting with for 17 days in hospital waiting rooms and surgical recovery rooms and the specific 3 a.m. hours of a PICU. I understood what I was going to do with the group chat photographs. Not immediately. Not while Felix was still fragile and the routines of home were being re-established and the new medication schedule was being learned and the follow-up appointments were being calendared. Not while Marcus and I were both still in the specific aftermath of 17 days and were still waking at night to check on sounds that were not there. Later. When I was ready. I was ready in February. Felix was 9 months old. He had his focused attention and his new sounds and a weight gain that Dr. Elaine noted at each appointment with the specific satisfaction of someone watching a number go the right direction. I sent individual messages. Not a group text. Not a public post. Individual messages to each of the 11 people in the beach photograph. 11 messages. Each one was specific to the person receiving it. My mother's message told her what the 43 hours before she arrived had contained. The ambulance. The PICU. The conversation with Dr. Elaine about the procedure. The 41 hours without sleep. And then, specifically, the group chat. The photographs. The fish. The sunset. The restaurant meal. The golden hour photograph with 11 faces. I told her I had seen every photograph. I told her I had said nothing. I told her I had forgotten nothing. I told her that what I was doing now was not saying nothing. My Aunt Rosalind's message told her the same things because she had been in the photograph and because the trip had included her and because she had sent 3 fire emojis under my mother's sunset photograph while my son was in a cardiac ICU. 11 messages. 11 specific accountings of what I had been in on the Tuesday and the Wednesday and the 43 hours while the photographs were being taken and posted. My grandmother's message was the shortest because she was 81 and because the dancing cat gif was a dancing cat gif and it was what it was, and I understood that her understanding of what the group chat contained was limited by her understanding of the group chat. But she was in the photograph. She got a message. The responses came back across 3 days. My mother called. She had been crying before I answered, and I could hear it in the first words she produced, which were not words but the sound of someone who has read something and is calling from inside the reading of it. I did not think. Her voice was the honest version, without management or preparation. I did not think about what it looked like. We were already there, and we told ourselves you had Marcus and that you had the hospital and that we would be there Thursday, and I did not think about what you were looking at on your phone. I know you did not think. That is not better. No. I should have thought. Yes. I should have come Tuesday. Yes. I keep thinking about the 43 hours, she said. I keep thinking about you in that waiting room looking at the fish photograph. I looked at the window. Felix was in the next room. I could hear the specific sounds of him, the sounds of a 9-month-old doing what 9-month-olds do in the specific language of that age that I had learned to read the way I had learned to read the monitors. I need you to understand something, I said. I am not ending this relationship. I am not closing the door. Felix needs his grandparents, and I am not going to make him pay for what happened in January. But I need you to understand what you were not there for. I need it to be specific. Not general. Not I know we made a mistake, I said. The ambulance on Tuesday morning. The 4 minutes. The PICU. Dr. Elaine saying stable and meaning it carefully. The 43 hours without sleep. The procedure conversation. Tuesday to Thursday, every hour of it, I was in it alone with Marcus while the group chat had photographs of fish and sunsets. She was quiet. That is what you were not there for. I know. I need you to know it specifically. I do. Good. My father called the next day. His message was the one I had spent the most time writing because my father was the one I had always been closest to and because the photograph included his face in a way that had produced a specific weight that the other faces had not produced in quite the same way. He did not explain. He did not list the reasons the trip had felt impossible to leave. He said, I failed you. 3 words. I sat with them. Yes. The fish photograph, he said, I posted that photograph. I was standing there with the fish and I thought about Felix for a moment and then I took the photograph and posted it, and I have not been able to think about that clearly since your message arrived. I know. What do you need from me? I need you to be there the next time, I said, not there in the sense of physically present before I call. There in the sense of being the person who gets in the car when I call. Who does not calculate whether it is convenient, I said. I need to know that Felix has grandparents who come on Tuesday. We will come on Tuesday. I need to see it happen. I know. I am not asking you to prove it to me in words. I am asking you to let it prove itself over time. He said he understood. Rosalind came to see Felix in March. She did not call ahead to ask if it was okay. She called to say she was coming and she came and she sat on the floor with Felix for an hour and she held him and she looked at his face with the specific attention of someone who is holding something they understand they almost were not there for. At the door she said, "I'm sorry I posted the fire emojis." I looked at her. 3 fire emojis under a sunset photograph. While Felix was in the PICU. Yes. She looked at Felix in my arms. I was not thinking about what you were seeing on your phone. I was thinking about the photograph, she said. That is a version of not thinking about you that I am going to have to sit with for a long time. Yes. She kissed Felix on the forehead. She left. I closed the door. Felix looked at the door with his focused attention. Then he looked at me. The 11 messages had produced 11 responses. Not all of them were my mother's response or my father's response. Some were shorter. Some were more defensive than I would have wanted and less honest than I had hoped for. My cousin Bet sent a message that was 2 paragraphs of explaining the circumstances of the trip and why leaving had felt complicated, and then it ended with, "I hope you understand we love Felix." I love Felix was not the point. I understood that Bet was not ready to receive the message the way it had been sent, and I filed that accurately. The fish photograph is not something I look at. I do not need to look at it because it exists in a part of my memory that does not require the photograph to be visible in order to be present. Felix is 11 months old now. He has the focused attention he arrived with and a laugh that started appearing at 4 months and that Dr. Elaine calls a good sign and that Marcus and I call the best sound we have ever heard. My parents come on Tuesdays. Not every Tuesday. Most of them. Consistently enough that Felix knows the sound of their car and turns his head toward the window when he hears it. Tuesdays were the day I chose because Tuesday was the day the ambulance came and I wanted Tuesdays to become something else in my memory and in Felix's, and they are becoming something else. Slowly. The way things become something else when you build the new thing deliberately in the place where the hard thing was. I said nothing in January. I forgot nothing in January. In February I stopped saying nothing. There is a specific kind of person who posts a fish photograph while your child is in a cardiac ICU. They are not a monster. They are a person who looked at their phone and thought about themselves first and did not extend the thinking to what you were looking at on your phone. They are a person who will tell you they love you and mean it while posting the fish. Both of those things are true simultaneously. The true things existing simultaneously does not resolve them into one thing. They remain 2 things. You are allowed to see both of them clearly. You are allowed to say nothing. You are allowed to forget nothing. And when you are ready, you are allowed to stop saying nothing. Send the message. Be specific. Name the fish photograph. Name the fire emojis. Name the golden hour with 11 faces. Name every hour of the 43 that they were not in the room for. Let them understand what specific means. Because general apologies are easy. Specific ones cost something. Make them cost something. Felix deserves grandparents who understand the cost. Make sure they understand it. Before the next Tuesday comes. And it will come. Tuesdays always come. Make sure the people you love know which kind of Tuesday you need them to be the kind of person who gets in the car for. No fish photographs. No fire emojis. Just the car. Just Tuesday. Just there.